So I went back and forth about whether or not I would do another live right now. People keep, well, not people. I have a very, very respected person in my life who put up with me for a few months. Her and her husband when I lived in Washington, D.C. At the end of my college years. And they don't probably know this, but they taught me a lot about being accepted. And um, there's people I never met just took me into their house and like carried my stuff in for me and took me to church and helped me find my car when it was stolen and just I had previously belonged to a church in my hometown, looking at you, Niagara Falls, dump, that was of the same denomination. It was the Assembly of God. And I'd only been there for several years because that's not where I grew up. I grew up in a fantastic church. I think they call it New Covenant Church now. It used to be called New Covenant Tabernacle, so whatever. It's over there in Tonawanda, and just loved that place. And in fact, I think I think their pastor staff still includes some people that I'm close with or was during high school and during those years, and still someone I consider a good friend. Um, and but for a while I was at this other church, and I don't, you know, churches can be such cesspools. And there were some fabulous people at this church, and I'd love to say names right now, but I have the feeling that I'd forget a few people. Um, but it was not a place of love. It was not a place where you could feel like you were accepted. In fact, I wasn't. I was really blue collar compared to the rest of them. My family didn't come from money. We ate out of the soup kitchen sometimes. I mean, like we had what we needed most of the time. And my parents each they split up three times, so they we didn't have we didn't live in like the ghetto or anything, but we didn't have there's a lot of emotional, mental, psychological, verbal, physical, and some sexual abuse that went on that a lot of people don't know about. A few do. Um, my sister and I both dealt with it, but it was mostly directed at me because I had, I think I mentioned before, I had two parents. One was a grandiose narcissist, that had been my mother, and the other was a covert narcissist, my father. Um, many people, no, some people who know me think that I idolized is the word my father, and I've heard it from more than one person. So if it's you, and you're looking at this and you said this to me recently, it's not about you, it's about many people. What they don't understand is that he took me away from the hell of my mother, and then he turned into his own hell. And part of me wanting a place of my own was getting to a place where I had friends. And so I started going to this church where my best friend at the time was going. And she went off to college, and I stuck around there. And I realized, oh, I just do not fit in here. My parents had the occasional glass of wine. I remember my mom watching Dallas, when it was on, and we played Crazy Eights and Uno, and I think it was before Uno. I don't know. But we went to the movies. We saw Five Goes West. Like we were normal people. But for a lot of the time too, I grew up in a church called Niagara Community Church, which some really great people there too. Like the kind of people that care about whether or not you like get to church. Those kind of people. Um, and then see my mom, she went to Calvary Baptist growing up, so it was all this mix of a lot of people who ended up at this church assembly that I went to, were people that my mom had either grown up with or had known or had lived with her parents because they were motel owners. Um, they're back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and I don't know when she sold it. I think like 87 or 88. Um, right there where the Delta Sonic is now. But anyway, when I lived in DC, these people who I lived with, this couple, they were part of this different type of church. It was a church called, at the time, they called it Christ Church. I think they added Christ Church on Embassy Row, and it's changed now to a different name, I think. But it's pastored by David and Carol Owens, and I don't even know where they are anymore. But at the time, um, and I remember being stunned because I'd never been to an Assembly of God that was like a hardcore Assembly of God. Because the one I grew up in wasn't like that. But I'd never been to a church like that, that people loved you. You know, they were excited to see you. How was your day? You know, they were excited about what you wore. They complimented you if you did something well, and they were there for you just to be there for you because they wanted to be. You weren't part of the B list, you know. And these are people who lived and worked in Washington on Capitol Hill and like covered Congress and for newspapers and national, I think it was National Review and other people, and like, and I remember crying on my drive home thinking I had to go back to that church that I couldn't stand. And I don't know why. I wasn't there very long, and I ended up going back to the one I grew up in, but churches can really kill you. And I will tell you that it wasn't long after I went to that, after I went back home and back there, that I just walked away from my faith. Like, I just didn't care. You, you know people don't care about you when they don't call you and they don't show up. They they see you in church and they tell you why you should be down. I mean, literally, like this woman, I'll never forget her grabbing me by my collar and telling me I should have been down praying at the altar. And this woman, man, she was something else. This old lady, I used to like to play games with her and tell her I was out drinking the night before and things like that. It's totally not me, but I just didn't care. You know, like, you're gonna mess with me, you might as well at least make it worth something, right? You know, so at least it's worth a laugh. But I remember there was never this continuity, this feeling of love at this place. It didn't matter what pastor there was there. And so this people that I lived with in DC, that I went to this church, it was great. I really respect them, and I was, you know, she mentioned to me once, you know, it might be wise to not talk about what you're going through until after you've kind of gone through it, and God can get the glory from it and all this, and I totally respect it, and I'm so grateful that she told me that. But I'm gonna go against it here because there are people. It makes me so angry to see people who are happy, who have turned other people's lives upside down. It makes me so angry. I saw a picture the other day, and if I could have ripped it from the screen of my cell phone, I would have, because of one of the people in this particular picture deserves to be in hell. And I don't mean that in the sense of we all are humans, we all deserve to be in hell. I mean like hell, like narcissistic, psychopath, sadistic, horrible person. And that person's happy. And I'm here. And I didn't, I debated on how much I would say this because it is humiliating. But in the past 2.5 weeks, I've been in 3 different